I often get asked what's the best place to start with Stephen King, and I've got a starter guide for you, new and updated for 2022. Stay tuned and find out what it is. Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Zach with Zacks Books, and today I've got a Stephen King starter guide, updated 2022 edition. Obviously I've got more books read now versus the last time I did it. If you want to compare them, we'll have the old video posted up here. Pretty much, I don't know how many stayed the same. I didn't do a rewatch of it to compare the answers. I will say some of them might be the same, some of them might be a little bit different. I do have a prompt from Danielle's phone with a couple of questions that I'm going to be asking myself and then answering with a Stephen King book. We have the podcast back up, so again, we'll have links down below for all that stuff. Podcast, like I said, back up. We're doing that still. We have also got our store open, the merch store, and our bookstore. We got all that going on still too. Otherwise, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the list. Alright, so let me get to question number 1. What book to read if you're wanting to read in chronological order, / what books to read if you want to get through the Bachmans first? So, obviously, Chronological Order would be his first novel, Carrie, with which, if it was not for Tabitha pulling this out of the garbage, we would not have... we might not have any of these books, to be honest with you. So pretty much this is about a girl in high school who gets the she gets pyrokinesis, control stuff with her mind, set stuff on fire, and overall just a really scary character in terms of her abilities and her powers. But her mom is also one of the worst evil characters that you can imagine. So I would definitely say this is a good place to start if you want to go chronological. Obviously, not just besides the fact that it's the first book, but because it is a good starting spot. It's on the smaller side. It's not like a couple other books I'm going to talk about. It's a good starting point. So I would say if you're going to start chronological, I would go with Carrie. If you're going to start Bachman, technically chronologically, Rage would be the first one, but out of the Bachmans, I'd say, besides, I think, The Regulators is kind of a slight turnoff. Rage would be kind of a turnoff. It's about a school shooting. I would not recommend that to a first-time person reading King, just because it's not the best. So I would start where I actually started. This is the first Stephen King book that I actually read start to finish just in general. And that is The Long Walk. So this is a very good book. Carrie got 4 stars for me. This one got 5. We'll have Goodreads down below if you want to take a look at all my ratings for all these books. This book was really good. This is about 100 young men who go on this long walk. Pretty much they keep walking, and then there's a grand prize at the end. And there can obviously only be one winner. So you're pretty much following from the point of view of Ray Garrity, really cool kid. I honestly thought this book was really solid, and I would definitely recommend this. So if you're going to start with Bachman, I would start with The Long Walk. Alright, if you're a more pure horror, wanting something to scare the pants out for you kind of book, a close second to me would be Salem's Lot. That is a really good book. It's the one about vampires. It's a really solid book. But the one that I always pick and lean towards, just because it's just an eerie and creepy book, is Pet Sematary. So this book is about, a pet cemetery. This family moves into this new house. You've got Louis Creed, the dad. He's a doctor. Church the cat is just a really annoying kind of character in terms of gets real mean after what happens to the cat happens to the cat. Gage is also the most adorable child ever. Yeah, I will go with that. I'm not going to say anything else. One of my all-time favorite characters in the King book is in this book, Jug Crandall. He's the neighbor. Just a really cool character, and honestly, like, he's just really cool. He's a fun character, and I enjoyed this story oh so much. A lot of these I'm going to try and keep more on the briefer side in terms of like description, because I want you to. I don't want to give too much away with the book. So, but yeah, I do have videos pretty much on like all these books. So just check out the channel, subscribe. But yeah, I know if you want something that's going to scare the pants off you, I would go with Pet Sematary. All right, if you're a true crime fan, the book that I would recommend, I would say Later would be a good option as well. It's one of his true crime novels that he wrote along with The Colorado Kid and Joyland. Later is the best out of the three, in my opinion. But I'm going to go with a new one, Billy Summers. So this is about a assassin who gets hired for one last job. He's kind of tired of doing it, but he gets double-crossed. And I will say, ending you kind of see coming, but you really just don't want that to be the case. So that is how I will leave that. But this is a true crime book. I triple-checked. But this book is really good. It's one of his new releases that came out last year in 2021. So, yeah, I would go with Billy Summers if you're a true crime fanatic. Alright, so for this next category, we kind of combined them because it's the same book for both of them. There is no real, there's no way around it. If you're looking for a book that is a part of a series, and if you're looking for a top dog fantasy book, look no further than The Gunslinger, the Dark Tower series. There are 8 books in the series, 7 original ones, and then he wrote, I can't think of the name of it, The Wind Through the Keyhole. He wrote that, I think it was 2012 or 2013. And chronologically it fits in between Wizard and Glass and Wolves of the Kala, which is book 4 and 5. But he has said that you're supposed to read Wind Through the Keyhole at the end of all of it, so after book 7, which I did not do. But this is the first book in the series. You got The Gunslinger. This is pretty much starting it out. You meet Roland, the gunslinger. Book 2, you meet his quartet, which is like his group of followers. Book 3, The Journey Begins. Book 4, Wizard and Glass, is kind of a... I consider it a little bit of a roadblock, but a lot of people really like it, so don't just base it off of my opinion here. Wizard and Glass, I thought it's a backstory pretty much. It's like a 600-page backstory about Roland, like pre this book. A lot of people enjoyed it. I'm someone who didn't enjoy it as much. Book 5, Wolves of the Kala, there's like a lot of fighting in that one. Song of Susanna is kind of an oddball book because you kind of break the fourth wall. And then book 7 is just purely The Dark Tower. That's where you conclude Roland's story. I did a reading vlog on that, so if you want to check out that, check it out up here. I believe it is spoiler free, but I definitely would consider looking at the other books first. And then obviously Went Through the Keyhole would be the last one, which is another sort of like backstory. That's why I would say it's like 4.5 is what it's labeled. But yeah, very good series. I would definitely check it out. It's a good series and it's a good fantasy. I mean, it's kind of got all the genres in it. You got horror, you got like crime, you got all kinds of stuff. And everything in his universe is centered around this tower. So, but yes, I would definitely check this series out. The Dark Tower, very phenomenal series and fantasy. Alright, this next one is the book that I have not read, but there's nothing that I can think of that really pretty much take its spot, so this is going to be quite brief. If you're looking for a historical fiction book, I would say 11/22/63. This is a book about a guy who goes back in time to stop the John F. Kennedy assassination. I've heard the ending is on the sadder side, but other than that, I haven't heard a whole lot. Otherwise, a lot of people have this in their top 10, their top 5. A lot of people have this as their top book. I have not gotten to it yet, but I am planning to read this as my next Stephen King book, so I'll probably end up having a video on it. So, but yeah, I would say if you're a historical fiction person, I would definitely check out 11/22/63. All right. In my opinion, this book is the best in terms of being. If you're someone who enjoys character building, like a book that's more character driven than the actual story itself, to me, this book kind of does both, but I would say it's got a really good amount of character building, and that would be it. This book, it's chunky. This used to be in my all-time favorite Stephen King book spot for the longest time, and then last year for what I called Zocktober, I did rereads of books that were in my top 5 to see if I could reshuffle them, and then ones that were out of my top 10 to see if I can get them in the top 10. Ultimately, I'll talk about the one that actually is in my top spot. Pet Sematary is number 2, and It is now number 3. I did not reread this one, but I plan to this year, and it might take the top spot again. So this is about 7 kids in Derry, Maine, who are up against this evil entity known as Pennywise, and it's a shape-shifting being from another planet, lives in the sewers. It's a very well-written book. It's very long. If you can get through the fact that it is on the bigger side, this book is phenomenal. It's really good. There's a scene towards the end that's always very questionable for a lot of people, and you'll know it when you read it because you'll just know it. But other than that, this book is ideally almost perfect. I just need to reread it eventually. So, a character-driven book is it. All right. Now, in my opinion, there are a couple of books that Stephen King has written that a lot of people don't talk about, or I would also consider the category of badmouth, that I think are actually pretty good. Dreamcatcher I thought was really good. The Tommyknockers actually was not the worst thing I've read. But there's one book that I think doesn't get talked about enough that is a very good book, and that is Christine. The book about a 58 Plymouth Fury that comes to life and has a murderous spree. This book was just so good. Honestly, I never thought that it would get kicked out of my top 5 of all time, but then I read The Dead Zone, and that kicked it out. This book was such a good read. I thoroughly enjoyed everything about this. I definitely would, if you want something, it's horror. It's got some character building because you can kind of get the friendship between all 3 of the friends. Definitely a really good book, and I would definitely say that this is a hidden gem, in my opinion. So, Christine. All right, next up is if you're looking for a book that is truly close to a movie adaptation in terms of the movie is very close to the book. The 2 that come to mind are The Shawshank Redemption, if you want something on the shorter side, and in terms of a novel, I would go with The Green Mile. This book was so good. It was also in my top 5 for the longest time until The Dead Zone, and Needful Things, I think. This book is just so good. It's sad. The character of John Coffey is just a phenomenal character. Paul Edgecombe, such a good guy. I would definitely read this book. It's so good. And the movie's phenomenal, too. It's very sad. So, I would definitely check this out. It's about John Coffey, who's an inmate who's wrongfully accused of murdering and raping 2 little girls, and he's got a gift from God. He has the power of healing, brings a mouse back to life. Paul Edgecombe has got a urinary tract infection or something like that, and Coffey fixes it. He truly is a phenomenal character. He's such a nice guy. I would definitely check this book out. The Green Mile. Alright, so I made a rule where I couldn't put the same book twice for this list. I made an exception for The Dark Tower just because it's just that good of a series. But if you want something that is a longer book that is pretty good, I was between Needful Things, because that is a pretty good book, and the one I went with, which I read earlier this year, Under the Dome. This is the third largest book that he has published under his own name, I think. The first one being The Stand. I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering why The Stand is not in this position. The Stand is a book that I read 2 years ago there was a lot of things going on in that book, and I just was, I need to reread that book this year. So I'm going to go Under the Dome. It's a town about a dome that pretty much goes over this town, and I mean, everything goes to hell. It's like not good. It's a very bad time for everybody. You have a group of people who are trying to like overrun the town. A lot of people die. I mean, the ending, a lot of people really didn't enjoy. I didn't mind it. I thought it was the only thing that kind of made logical sense in terms of like why there's a dome over this town. But I mean, a lot of people didn't like it. But it is a very long book, so be ready for a lot of characters and a lot of things to follow. So if you want a really long book, I would definitely say Under the Dome is the book to go with. On the counterpart of that, if you want something that is on the shorter side, there's a couple of short stories and a couple of novellas that I would recommend. The Monkey from Skeleton Crew is really good, and so is The Raft. But the one I'm going to go with is The Mist, also from Skeleton Crew. And typically I don't like open-ended endings, where you kind of need to like figure it out yourself, like how is it going to end. But this one worked. A group of people get stuck in a supermarket, and this giant mist comes over the town, and there's like a lot of deadly creatures inside of it that like destroy this mart, the supermarket, and it's actually quite creepy in terms of a story. The movie is phenomenal as well. The ending of the movie, I think, is like, it is so good. It's a really good ending. It's definitely not one you think you see coming, because the book does not end that way. So, but this book, if you want something that's on the way shorter side, I would go with The Mist. Okay, so if you are probably wondering where is the category of best book, in my opinion, it's this last category. There are plenty of books that I think are really good. I have an updated top 10 that I think I came out with towards the end of last year. If you have not seen that, check it out up here. The new top dog is The Shining. This book, it's so good. It's about a family that gets, the father, Jack Torrance, gets a job at the Overlook Hotel to be the winter caretaker. Their son, Wendy, is the wife. Danny, their son, has this ability called the Shine, the Shining, which he finds out from the chef Dick Halloran, because he has it too. There's a lot of scary things at the Overlook Hotel. There's a lot of deadly things at the Overlook Hotel. And Jack Torrance is a recovering alcoholic, and he gets swayed a lot. It's a very solid book. To me, the Kubrick movie is also very good, but a lot of people hate it because it's not true to the King book. That's like the only one that I'll have as like an exception where like it's fine, because I did watch the movie before I read the book. I don't know, it's just the exception I have in terms of like an adaptation thing, because I know I bashed the 2019 Pet Sematary movie that came out, because it was not close to the book, and somebody was like, well, how the hell can you enjoy the Shining movie? That's a movie that I grew up with as a child, and I'm never going to not love it. So, but the book is 100 times better in my opinion. It's a lot eerier. It's such a good story. To me, it's his best book of all time. I would definitely check out The Shining while you're at it. Alright, so that is my new updated Stephen King starter guide. Again, we will have these books linked down below if you're intrigued with any of them. You probably might not get the same editions I have if you do look at them, though. But yeah, otherwise, this was so much fun to do again. I updated the list for 2022 because I have a few books on here that I did not read the last time. And I definitely want to see what you guys think. If you guys have any favorites from the questions that I asked, let me know in the comments down below. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video. Later.